Remember 2020? Yeah, fun times. Not. COVID-19 hit the world like a rogue wave. People got sick. Businesses closed. Jobs vanished faster than a politician's promise. It was a mess. Governments knew they had to do something drastic, something big, something expensive. Think of it like this. The world's economy caught a nasty cold, and governments decided to treat it with a fire hose of cash. The United States, never one to be outdone, pulled out its checkbook and went to town. We're talking trillions of dollars, folks. Stimulus checks? You got it. Extra unemployment benefits? Sure thing. Loans for small businesses struggling to stay afloat? Coming right up. And for the big boys the airlines and corporations deemed too big to fail? Well, let's just say they got a very generous helping of bailout money. The thinking was simple. Pump money into the economy, keep people and businesses afloat, and hope for the best. Here's where things get a bit sticky. The pandemic didn't just bring a health crisis, it also exposed deep cracks in our economic system. Suddenly, millions of people found themselves out of work, businesses shuttered overnight, and uncertainty became the new normal. The world watched as economies everywhere were put to the test, and the results were anything but equal. While those stimulus checks were certainly helpful, not everyone got the same size life raft. Some families breathed a sigh of relief when the checks arrived, but for others, the help was too little, too late, or never came at all. The process was confusing, and many people slipped through the cracks, left waiting or denied altogether. Big corporations with their fancy lawyers and lobbyists seemed to navigate the system a bit better than, say, your local bookshop or restaurant. While small businesses struggled to keep the lights on, large companies often found ways to secure bigger bailouts and more support, sometimes even growing stronger during the crisis. And let's not forget about the stock market. It's like a whole separate world, where good news for the economy doesn't always translate to good news for regular people. The headlines might have talked about record highs, but for most, those numbers felt distant and disconnected from daily life. Stock prices went up, and guess who benefited? Yep, the folks who already had money to invest. For those with savings or investments, the pandemic became an unexpected opportunity to grow their wealth, while millions of others were just trying to get by. Meanwhile, many ordinary people were struggling to pay rent and put food on the table. Food banks saw record demand, and families faced tough choices about which bills to pay. The gap between Wall Street and Main Street had never felt wider. It was a classic case of the rich getting richer while everyone else tried to hold on. The pandemic didn't just test our health, it tested our sense of fairness, and for many, the results were a harsh wake-up call about who the economy really works for. So, where did all that money go? When the government unleashed a tidal wave of relief funds, it set off a chain reaction across the country. The big question on everyone's mind was, how would this sudden flood of cash actually impact our daily lives, our businesses, and the economy as a whole? Well, some of it went straight into people's pockets, which, let's be honest, was probably a good thing. For many families, those checks arrived just in time, offering a lifeline when things felt most uncertain. People needed to buy groceries, pay bills, and cover essentials. Suddenly, everyday purchases became a little less stressful, and people could breathe a sigh of relief, knowing they could keep food on the table and the lights on, and maybe, just maybe, treat themselves to a takeout meal or two, because even in tough times, a little comfort food goes a long way. Some of it went to businesses, helping them keep the lights on and their employees paid. Restaurants, shops, and local services all relied on this support to survive the storm. And for many, it made the difference between closing for good and staying afloat. And some of it, well, it found its way into the stock market, real estate, and other investments, as people looked for new ways to grow their money or simply protect what they had. This surge of cash pushed prices up, and away. Stocks soared, home prices jumped, and investors scrambled to keep up with the action. It was kind of like a giant game of hot potato, with money changing hands at lightning speed, everyone hoping not to be left empty-handed when the music stopped. With trillions of dollars bouncing around the economy, the effects rippled out in every direction, touching lives, businesses, and markets in ways we're still trying to understand today. But here's the thing about printing and borrowing trillions of dollars, there's always a catch. It might seem like a quick fix, a way to keep the economy afloat during tough times, but money doesn't just appear out of thin air without consequences. When governments inject massive amounts of cash into the system, it can feel like a lifeline at first. But beneath the surface, something else is brewing. And that catch, my friends, is called inflation. It's a word you've probably heard tossed around on the news, but what does it really mean for you and me? Inflation is the gradual rise in prices over time, and it quietly chips away at the value of every dollar in your wallet. When there's more money sloshing around, things tend to cost more. Suddenly your paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Groceries, rent, and everyday essentials all start creeping up in price, sometimes so slowly you barely notice, until you do. Remember that $2 cup of coffee you used to grab on your way to work? It was a small treat, a daily ritual that felt affordable. Yeah, it's now $3.50. That's not just a number, it's a sign of how inflation quietly changes our lives, one purchase at a time. And that gallon of petrol? The price at the pump keeps climbing, making every fill-up a little more painful for your wallet. Don't even get me started. For many families, these rising costs aren't just an inconvenience, they're a real source of stress. Inflation is like a sneaky tax, eating away at our savings and making it harder to make ends meet. It doesn't show up on your tax return, but you feel it every time you shop or pay a bill. And the worst part, it's the little guys, the ones who can least afford it, who usually feel the pinch the most. For families living paycheck to paycheck, even a small increase in prices can mean tough choices, like cutting back on groceries or skipping a night out. So while the government's intentions were good, trying to help people and businesses weather the storm, the long-term consequences of all that spending remain to be seen. It's a delicate balance, and sometimes the solutions create new problems. One thing's for sure, the economic landscape has changed, and we're all still figuring out how to navigate this brave new world. The choices we make now will shape our future, and understanding the true cost of those choices is more important than ever.